The Panzerfaust, German, lit. Armor fist or tank fist, plural, Panzerfaust, is an inexpensive, single-shot, recoilless German anti-tank weapon of World War II. It consists of a small, disposable preloaded launch tube firing a high-explosive anti-tank warhead, and was intended to be operated by a single soldier. The Panzerfaust's direct ancestor was the similar, smaller warhead Faust-Patroni ordnance device. The Panzerfaust was in use from 1943 until the end of the war. The weapon's concepts played an important part in the development of the later Russian RPG weapon systems such as the RPG-2. Most notably, the RPG-7 added a sustainer rocket motor to the grenade. Background: Faust-Patroni. A forerunner of the Panzerfaust was the Faust-Patroni, literally fist cartridge. The Faust-Patroni was much smaller in physical appearance than the better-known Panzerfaust. Development of the Faust-Patroni started in the summer of 1942 at the German company Hassig with the development of a smaller prototype called Gretchen, Little Greta, by a team headed by Dr. Heinrich Langweiler in Leipzig. The basic concept was that of a recoilless gun. Neither the Faust-Patroni, nor its successor the Panzerfaust were rockets, because the round design, like those fired by grenade launchers, didn't feature a sustainer rocket motor that ignited after it left the launcher. The following weapon model of the Panzerfaust family, the so-called Faust-Patroni Klein, 30mm, small fist cartridge, had a total weight of 3.2 kilograms, 7.1 pounds, and a total length of 98.5 centimeters, 38 3/4 in. Its projectile had a length of 36 centimeters, 14 1/4 in, and a warhead diameter of 10 centimeters, 4 in. It carried a shaped charge of 400 grams, 14 ounces, of a 50:50 mix of TNT and trihexogen. The propellant consisted of 54 grams, 1.9 ounces or 830 grains, of black powder. The metal launch tube had a length of 80 centimeters, 31 1/2 in, and a diameter of 3.3 centimeters, 1.3 in. Early models reportedly 2.8 centimeters, 1.1 in. Fitted to the warhead was a wooden shaft with folded stabilizing fins, made of 0.25 mm, 0.01 in, thick spring metal. These bent blades straightened into position by themselves as soon as they left the launch tube. The warhead was accelerated to a speed of 28 mph, 92 feet/s, had a range of about 30 m, 100 feet, and an armor penetration of up to 140 mm, 5 1/2 in, of plain steel. The following weapon model of the Panzerfaust family, the so-called Faust-Patroni Klein, 30mm, small fist cartridge, had a total weight of 3.2 kilograms, 7.1 pounds, and a total length of 98.5 centimeters, 38 3/4 in. Its projectile had a length of 36 centimeters, 14 1/4 in, and a warhead diameter of 10 centimeters, 4 in. It carried a shaped charge of 400 grams, 14 ounces, of a 50:50 mix of TNT and trihexogen. The propellant consisted of 54 grams, 1.9 ounces or 830 grains, of black powder. The metal launch tube had a length of 80 centimeters, 31 1/2 in, and a diameter of 3.3 centimeters, 1.3 in. Early models reportedly 2.8 centimeters, 1.1 in. Fitted to the warhead was a wooden shaft with folded stabilizing fins, made of 0.25 mm, 0.01 in, thick spring metal. These bent blades straightened into position by themselves as soon as they left the launch tube. The warhead was accelerated to a speed of 28 mph, 92 feet/s, had a range of about 30 m, 100 feet, and an armor penetration of up to 140 mm, 5 1/2 in, of plain steel. Development began in 1942 on a larger version of the Faust-Patroni. The resulting weapon was the Panzerfaust 30, with a total weight of 5.1 kilograms, 11.2 pounds, and total length of 1.045 meters, 3.4 feet. The launch tube was made of low-grade steel 44 mm, 1.7 in diameter, containing a 95-gram, 3.4 ounces, charge of black powder propellant. Along the side of the tube were a simple folding rear sight and a trigger. The edge of the warhead was used as the front sight. The oversize warhead, 140 mm, 5.5 in diameter, was fitted into the front of the tube by an attached wooden tail stem with metal stabilizing fins. The warhead weighed 2.9 kilograms, 6.4 pounds, and contained 0.8 kilograms, 1.8 pounds, of a 50:50 mixture of TNT and hexagon explosives, and had armor penetration of 200 mm, 7.9 in. The Panzerfaust often had warnings written in large red letters on the upper rear end of the tube, the words usually being Achtung, Führerstrahl, Beware, Fire jet. This was to warn soldiers to avoid the backblast. After firing, the tube was discarded, making the Panzerfaust the first disposable anti-tank weapon. The weapon, when correctly fired from the crook of the arm, could with its shaped charge warhead penetrate the armor of any armored fighting vehicle of the period. Combat use. To use the Panzerfaust, the soldier took off the safety, aimed, and, with a little squeeze, fired the projectile. Unlike the Americans' original M160mm bazooka and the Germans' own heavier 88mm Panzerschreck tube-type rocket launchers based on the American ordnance piece, the Panzerfaust did not have a trigger. It had a pedal-like lever near the projectile that ignited the propellant when squeezed. When used against tanks, the Panzerfaust had an impressive beyond-armor effect. Compared to the bazooka and the Panzerschreck, it made a larger hole and produced massive spalling that killed the crew and destroyed equipment. One informal test found that the Panzerfaust made an entry hole 2 3/4 inches in diameter, whereas the Panzerschreck made an entry hole at least 1 inch in diameter, and the bazooka made an entry hole that was only a half inch in diameter. Germany. In the Battle of Normandy, only 6% of British tank losses were from Panzerfaust fire despite the close-range combat in the Bocage landscape. However, the threat from the Panzerfaust forced tank forces to wait for infantry support before advancing. The portion of British tanks taken out of action by Panzerfausts later rose to 34%, a rise probably explained by the lack of German anti-tank guns late in the war and the increased numbers of Panzerfausts that were available. In urban combat later in the war in eastern Germany, about 70% of tanks destroyed were hit by Panzerfaust or Panzerschrecks. The Soviet forces responded by installing spaced armor on their tanks from early 1945 onwards, although it was often easily blown off by exploding shells or Panzerfaust hits. Each tank company was also assigned a platoon of infantry to protect them from infantry-wielded anti-tank weapons. During the last stages of the war, many poorly trained conscripts and Hitler Youth members were given a Panzerfaust and nothing else, causing several German generals to comment sarcastically that the tubes could then be used as clubs. Other countries. Many Panzerfaust were sold to Finland, which urgently needed them, as the Finnish forces did not have enough anti-tank weapons that could penetrate heavily armored Soviet tanks like the T-34 and IS-2. The Finnish experience with the weapon and its adaptability to Finnish needs was mixed, and only 4,000 of 25,000 Panzerfaust delivered were expended in combat. The manual that came with the weapon upon delivery to the Finns included depictions of where to aim the weapon on the Soviet T-34 and US Sherman tanks. The Italian Social Republic and Government of National Unity, Hungary, also used the Panzerfaust. Several Italian units became known as skilled anti-tank hunters, and the Hungarians used the Panzerfaust extensively during the siege of Budapest. The US 82nd Airborne Division captured some Panzerfaust in the Sicilian campaign, and later during the fighting in Normandy. Finding them more effective than their own bazookas, they held onto them and used them during the later stages of the French campaign, even dropping with them into the Netherlands during Operation Market Garden. They captured an ammunition dump of Panzerfaust near Nijmegen, and used them through the Ardennes offensive toward the end of the war. The Soviet Army only incidentally used captured Panzerfausts in 1944, but from beginning of 1945 many became available and were used during Soviet 1945 offensives, mostly in street fighting against buildings and covers. In February 1945 such use of captured Panzerfausts was recommended in a directive by Marshal Georgy Zhukov. Similarly they were used by the Polish People's Army. After the war some 4,000 Panzerfausts were adapted by the Polish Army in 1949, designated as PG-49. Plans and technical materials on the Panzerfaust were supplied to the Empire of Japan to assist with their development of an effective anti-tank weapon. However, the Japanese went with a different design, the Type 4, loosely based upon the American bazooka. Examples of the American weapon were captured on Leyte. Variants: Panzerfaust 30 Klein, small, or Faust Patroni. This was the original version, first delivered in August 1943 with a total weight of 3.2 kilograms, 7.1 pounds, and overall length of 98.5 centimeters, 38.8 in. The 30 was indicative of the nominal maximum range of 30 m, 33 yd. It had a 3.3 centimeters, 1.3 in, diameter tube containing 54 grams, 1.9 ounces, of black powder propellant launching a 10 centimeters, 3.9 in, warhead carrying 400 grams, 14 ounces, of explosive. The projectile traveled at just 30 m, 98 feet, per second and could penetrate 140 millimeters, 5.5 in, of armor. Panzerfaust 30. An improved version also appearing in August 1943. This version had a larger warhead for improved armor penetration, 200 mm, 7.9 in, but the same range of 30 meters. Panzerfaust 60. This was the most common version, and was completed in early 1944. However, it did not reach full production until September 1944, when 400,000 were to be produced each month. It had a much more practical range of 60 m, 66 yd, although with a muzzle velocity of only 45 m, 148 feet, per second it would take 1.3 seconds for the warhead to reach a tank at that range. To achieve the higher velocity, the tube diameter was increased to 5 centimeters, 2.0 in, and 134 grams, 4.7 ounces, of propellant used. It also had an improved flip-up rear sight and trigger mechanism. The weapon now weighed 6.1 kilograms, 13 pounds. It could defeat 200 mm, 7.9 in, of armor. Panzerfaust 100. This was the final version produced in quantity, and was completed in September 1944. However, it did not reach full production until November 1944. It had a nominal maximum range of 100 m, 330 feet. 190 grams, 6.7 ounces, of propellant launched the warhead at 60 m, 200 feet, per second from a 6 centimeters, 2.4 in, diameter tube. The sight had holes for 30, 60, 80, and 150 m, 260 and 490 feet, and had luminous paint in them to make counting up to the correct one easier in the dark. This version weighed 6 kilograms, 13 pounds, and could penetrate 220 mm, 8.7 in, of armor. Panzerfaust 150. This was a major redesign of the weapon, and was deployed in limited numbers near the end of the war. The firing tube was reinforced and reusable for up to 10 shots. A new pointed warhead with increased armor penetration and two-stage propellant ignition gave a higher velocity of 85 m, 279 feet, per second. Production started in March 1945, 2 months before the end of the war. Panzerfaust 250. The last development of the Panzerfaust series was the Panzerfaust 250. It used a reloadable tube and now featured a pistol grip. With propellants in both the firing tube and on the projectile itself, it was projected to reach a projectile speed of 150 m/s, 490 feet/s. Serial production was scheduled to begin in September 1945. However, the development of this weapon was never completed and none were ever produced. The Soviet RPG-2 anti-tank rocket launcher partially was based on the design of the Panzerfaust 250. Related development. PAPI. Argentine-made anti-tank weapon, similar to the Panzerfaust. The acronym stands for Proyectil Anti-Tank para Infanteria, Spanish for Infantry Anti-Tank Projectile. Panzerskit M/45 and Panzerskit M/46. Swedish-made copies of the Panzerfaust. PC-100, PC-100, Panzertaunica 100M. Polish-made copy of the Panzerfaust 100, manufactured in 1951 to 1952. Despite large-scale orders, a production encountered technological difficulties and only 5,000 combat and 940 training PC-100 were made in 1952, before the Polish army switched to more modern Soviet RPG-2. It is erroneously known as PT-100 in foreign publications. Users. Panzerfaust. Nazi Germany. Kingdom of Bulgaria. Finland. Kingdom of Hungary. Italian Social Republic. Poland, use of captured Panzerfausts during the war, limited use post-war under a designation PG-49. Kingdom of Romania. Soviet Union, mass usage of captured Panzerfausts in 1945. United States U.S. Army's 82nd Airborne Division used captured examples, from Operation Husky VE Day. Derivatives. Argentina. Argentine-made PAPI and possibly Swedish-made Panzerskit M/46. Sweden manufactured and used copies of the Panzerfaust in at least two different variants, Panzerskit M/45 and Panzerskit M/46. Poland. Polish-made copy PC-100. Type man-portable anti-tank recoilless gun. Place of origin Nazi Germany. Service history. In service 1943–1945, Nazi Germany. Used by C users. Wars World War II. Production history. Produced 1942–1945. No built 6.7 million, all variants. Variants Panzerfaust 30, 60, 100, 150, 250. Specifications. Weight 6.25 kilograms, 13.8 pounds, Panzerfaust 60. Length 1 meter, 3 feet 3 in. Crew infantry. Caliber 149 mm, Panzerfaust 60. Effective firing range 60 m, 200 feet, Panzerfaust 60. Warhead-shaped charge. Detonation. Mechanism. Impact.
Please subscribe and thanks for watching.